Hello everyone, welcome back. There's a breaking story this morning. Let's get right into it. The United States has issued its new threat. Buy our F-35 fighter jet or else. And the threat was made by this guy, the US Ambassador to Canada, Pete Hoekstra. And it comes on the heels of that speech that our Prime Minister made to the World Economic Forum, where he basically explained in very direct terms that Canada was done with the old world order of superpowers intimidating middle powers to get their way. And the US Ambassador to Canada's threat goes something like this. If you don't buy the F-35 from us, then you can expect the US military to operate freely in your country. Just one step shy of saying, we'll invade you. Here's the story that was reported this morning on CBC. NORAD PAC would change if Canada pulls from the F-35 order, warns US Ambassador. NORAD would have to be altered, US Ambassador to Canada Pete Hoekstra told CBC News in an exclusive interview at Luke Air Force Base in Arizona. He says the United States would likely need to purchase more of the advanced aircraft for their own Air Force and would fly them more often into Canadian airspace to address threats approaching the US. Ambassador Hoekstra describes the current defense relationship as awesome, but says interventions by the US military over Canada would increase if Canada does not increase its purchase of the F-35s beyond the 16 currently on order. So you have to unpack his statements. And remember, this is the US Ambassador to Canada. What he says is basically US policy. He's the mouthpiece, the megaphone that amplifies US policy or threats to Canada. And what he's doing basically is spelling out the US position. They're petrified that we may not go through with purchasing their F-35s, and they're trying to blackmail us into doing so. And they're saying, if you don't purchase the planes from us, if you purchase those planes from Sweden, then we will deem Canada incapable of helping to protect the United States, and that constitutes a national security threat to the United States, and that would enable us to operate our military freely in your country. Now, why are the Americans so petrified that we're going to walk away from that deal and not purchase the F-35s? Well, because Saab, the company from Sweden, has really sweetened their offer to try and make a deal with Canada. Reported here last week, Saab wants Canada to buy 72 Gripens and 6 Global Eyes to fulfill a promise of adding 12,600 jobs in the Canadian economy. Now, Saab has made a very, very good offer to Canada, and I'm not going to go through all the details in this video. I've already made a video about this. I'll link it in the top right corner of all the benefits of doing a deal with Sweden rather than the United States. But part of it is that the planes would be manufactured in Canada. It would create jobs in Canada. Not only would the fighter jets be manufactured in Canada, but surveillance aircraft would be manufactured in Canada in a partnership with Bombardier. It would create a lot of jobs. The maintenance would be done in Canada. Canada would be in full control of all the tech from those planes. The benefits go on and on and on and on. And the United States is petrified that we're going to walk away from that deal, which represents a large investment directly into their economy. Military deals are one of the few things that governments do that inject cash directly into other countries' economies. The government has full control of where we spend our military budget. And the United States is petrified that that investment is going to go away. So they're threatening us in a really shocking way. Now imagine this. There's other NATO countries that fly the Gripen. There's other NATO countries that have all sorts of different military hardware. But here you have the situation where the United States threatens Canada and says, if you don't buy your military hardware from us, we have no choice but to operate freely in your airspace, our military operating in your country, because we don't have confidence that you could defend us or help defend us. Your country's military choices will be deemed a national security threat to the United States. And you know how this administration uses this national security threat rhetoric to their advantage. This could be followed up with no end of threats to try and force us into this contract. Now, if it was up to me, and I'm not a military expert, but I won't even buy carrots at the grocery store if they come from the United States. So I hope our government takes the deal with Saab and drops the F-35 contract. But as I said, I'm not an expert, so let's look at a second opinion. One country that completely regrets its choice of choosing the F-35 is Denmark. And this article explains at least one nation is regretting its purchase of the F-35. Denmark has been embroiled in a dispute with the US administration over the president's push to own Greenland. The small European country even deployed those jets to the Arctic island over the threats. Rasmus Jarlov, head of the Danish Parliament's Defense Committee, has described second thoughts over the order, but says the country has little choice now that it is their only operational fighter jet. He says about the F-35s, they're in for repairs about half the time or even more, so Americans have all the power of actually destroying our Air Force just by shutting down the parts supplies. Jarlov has a message for Canada: choose another fighter jet. So here you have a situation that just unfolded before our very eyes. The United States threatened Greenland. The United States, their president, made these bombastic threats that he needed the US to have Greenland. They were ready to go to war to take Greenland, a territory that's part of Denmark. Denmark has F-35s. They were in the situation, Denmark was in the situation that they had to defend themselves against the United States using an aircraft that the United States controls. And the head of their Parliamentary Defense Committee realized the complete weakness that their country had. If the United States was serious about taking Greenland, the United States would have been able to just shut down their Air Force. Denmark was in the situation where their defense capabilities were under direct control of the country that was threatening them. And that would be the exact situation that Canada would be in if we should go ahead with this purchase of the F-35s. Can you imagine if we purchased all of them and had 88 F-35s as our Air Force, and the United States became serious about trying to annex our country and basically just neutralized our Air Force? Maybe, as the official from Denmark explained, by withholding the parts so that we couldn't maintain the aircraft. Or possibly, and the President of the United States has even mentioned this, that there's this mysterious kill switch that they could just turn off the capabilities of the aircraft. Canada cannot get into this situation. And this is exactly the point that our Prime Minister was making when he gave his speech to the World Economic Forum. He basically spoke about this. And I think the time of dealing with the United States in a nice way, wearing white gloves and walking on eggshells, is over. There's no statements or assurances that any US official can make that we should take seriously. Certainly nothing that comes out of the President of the United States' mouth or any of his tweets or anything that the ambassador says or any high-ranking US official. It's all rhetoric. It's all lies. The United States is simply interested in their own interests. They spell it out in their security document to just increase their wealth and control their hemisphere. They're trying to use us and they're trying to blackmail us. And Canada needs to stand up for ourselves. We need to make our decisions. These are going to be hard decisions and they're going to have repercussions. But if we go along, we're basically saying that, yes, we'll become a vassal state of the United States. We either get annexed and taken over, which is the rhetoric that comes from the President of the United States, or we just go along with all their demands, send our money down there, buy their hardware, and let them basically control us. And I know that they have the world's largest military and they are a superpower. But remember the steps that our Prime Minister has taken. We've signed this deal with Europe to participate in the procurement of military hardware with the European Union. We're in discussions with Sweden over the Gripen. I think the United States is just petrified that we're going to drop the F-35. I think we should. I'm interested in your point of view. Leave your comments in the comments section. This escalation is just that. The American position now is weak. They realize that they could lose a big investment here. So they've done what they always do, is resorted to threats. And this time the threats are directly, we'll have to use our military in your country freely without your permission, because you obviously won't be able to help defend us, is their position. The typical American arrogant position. The whole world is a threat to the United States and they need to control all of it. and they want to control Canada. They want to dictate what we do. Thanks for watching this video, and if you want a more detailed analysis of the benefits of switching to the Saab, the Gripen, click the top right corner of the screen or the links that appear on the screen here to watch that video. Subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying the content, and I will catch you all on the next one.